Marco Rossi pulled up to Pizzeria Grande in his old blue car. The paint was peeling and the muffler made funny noises when he stopped. He grabbed the pizza box from the passenger seat and fixed his faded red cap that had the pizza shop logo on it. Marco was 40 years old now. He had been delivering pizzas for this shop for 8 years. His uniform was clean, but had seen better days. As Marco walked into the bright restaurant, he could hear the young workers whispering. They were all college kids in their early 20s. They thought Marco could not hear them, but he could. "Here comes old Marco again," one of them said. "I bet he will still be delivering pizzas when he is 60. Another one laughed. Marco pretended not to hear them. He smiled and nodded as he walked past. He was used to this kind of talk. The young staff thought Marco was just a failure who could not get a better job. They saw him as someone to feel sorry for or to laugh at. None of them knew the truth about him. Marco went to the back office to turn in his delivery slips and the cash he had collected. The manager, Phil, was counting money at his desk. "Good shift today, Marco?" Phil asked without looking up. "Yes, very good," Marco replied. Tips were good. People are happy with fast delivery. Phil nodded but did not really seem interested. He was too busy with the money and paperwork. Marco knew that Phil was stressed. The store was not doing as well as it should be. Marco had heard rumors that the owner might sell this location. After his shift ended, Marco drove to his small apartment across town. From the outside, it looked like the home of someone who did not make much money. But inside was different. Marco kept his home very clean and simple. He did not have fancy furniture or a big TV. Instead, he had books about business and money. On his kitchen table were folders and papers. Marco opened his laptop and checked his bank account. He smiled when he saw the numbers. While the young workers at the pizza shop thought he was poor, Marco had been saving money for years. He lived simply and put away most of what he earned. His bank account now had more than $200,000 in it. Next, Marco opened another folder on his computer. It contained information about buying a business. For 3 years, Marco had been researching how to buy a pizza franchise. He knew everything about how Pizzeria Grande worked. He knew which items sold best, which times were busiest, and what customers complained about. He had been gathering this information while everyone thought he was just a simple delivery driver. Marco had not always delivered pizzas. Years ago, he had worked in business management. He had a degree from a good college. But when the big company he worked for closed down, Marco had to find other work. He chose pizza delivery because it gave him cash every day and let him learn about a business from the ground level. The phone on his table buzzed. Marco picked it up and saw a message from his friend who worked at the bank. The message read, "Just heard Pizzeria Grande owner wants to sell all 5 city locations. Price is good. Are you still interested?" Marco smiled and typed back, "Very interested. Can we meet tomorrow to discuss a loan?" Marco looked around his simple apartment. Soon, things would change. The pizza guy they all laughed at had a plan they never expected. The next morning, Marco woke up early. He shaved his face very carefully and put on his best suit. It was navy blue, and he had only worn it 3 times before. Once for a wedding, once for a funeral, and once for a job interview many years ago. He looked at himself in the mirror and smiled. Today he did not look like a pizza delivery man. Marco drove to First City Bank and parked his old car far from the entrance. He did not want the bank manager to see it. Inside the bank, the air was cool and quiet. Soft music played from hidden speakers. Marco walked up to the front desk. "I have a meeting with Mr. Thompson at 9:30, Marco said to the young woman at the desk. She looked at him with surprise. Most people who came to see Mr. Thompson were rich business owners. Marco did not look rich in his old suit, but he spoke with confidence. "Please have a seat. I will tell him you are here," she said. Marco sat in a leather chair and waited. After 10 minutes, a tall man in an expensive suit came to meet him. "Marco, good to see you again," said Mr. Thompson. They shook hands and went to a private office. Inside the office, Marco showed Mr. Thompson his plans. He had 5 folders. Each folder had information about one of the Pizzeria Grande locations in the city. Marco had spent years making these folders. Each one showed how much money the store made, what could be improved, and how Marco would make it better. As you can see, I have done my research, Marco said. I know these stores better than anyone except maybe the owner himself. Mr. Thompson looked impressed. Most people come in here with big dreams, but no real plans. You have done your homework. They talked for 2 hours about money and business plans. At the end, Mr. Thompson closed the last folder. I think we can approve a loan for 3 of the 5 locations, he said. You have the down payment for 3. If those do well, we can talk about the other 2 later. Marco smiled and shook Mr. Thompson's hand. 3 is perfect to start. Thank you for believing in me. As Marco left the bank, his phone rang. It was his boss, Phil, from the pizza shop. Marco, can you come in early today? 2 drivers called in sick. Of course, Marco said. I will be there in 1 hour. Marco went home and changed from his suit back into his pizza delivery uniform. Soon he would own the place, but for now, he was still just the delivery guy. He decided he would not tell anyone about his plans until everything was final. When Marco arrived at Pizzeria Grande, it was very busy. The lunch rush had started early. The young workers were running around trying to keep up with orders. No one had time to make jokes about Marco today. Thank goodness you are here, said Phil. We have 8 deliveries waiting and more coming in. Can you take the Monroe Street and Park Avenue orders first? They have been waiting the longest. Marco nodded and grabbed the hot pizza bags. As he loaded them into his car, he looked back at the store. Soon it would be his store. He would make many changes, but first he had pizzas to deliver. As he drove to Monroe Street, Marco made mental notes about everything he saw. Which streets had construction that slowed deliveries? Which neighborhoods gave the best tips? All this information would help him when he was the owner. The rest of his shift went by quickly. Marco made 20 deliveries and earned good tips. No one who handed him money or thanked him for the pizzas knew they were talking to their future boss. 2 weeks passed. Marco continued to deliver pizzas every day. He kept his secret plans to himself. No one at Pizzeria Grande knew that he had met with the owner of the whole chain. One busy Friday night, Marco was washing his hands in the bathroom when he heard 2 of the young workers talking near the sinks. They did not see him in the last stall. Did you hear the news? Said the first voice. It was Ryan, one of the cashiers. Someone is buying this place. Phil told me this morning. No way, said the second voice. Marco knew it was Trey, one of the cooks. What will happen to our jobs? Phil said we might all get fired. The new owner might bring in all new people. That stinks, said Trey. I need this job for at least 2 more years until I finish college. Marco listened carefully. He had no plans to fire anyone. In fact, he wanted to keep all the good workers, but he had not told the current owner what his plans were. He made a mental note to talk to each employee himself once the deal was done. Marco quietly left the bathroom by another door. He did not want Ryan and Trey to know he had heard them. He finished his shift and went home. The next morning, Marco got an important call. It was from Ms. Diaz, the lawyer handling the sale of Pizzeria Grande. Good news, Mr. Rossi, she said on the phone. Mr. Belmont has accepted your offer for the 3 stores. We need you to come in Monday to sign the final papers. Marco felt his heart beating fast. This was really happening. After 8 years of planning and saving, he was going to own not 1 but 3 pizza restaurants. Thank you, Ms. Diaz. I will be there at 10 on Monday, Marco said. Marco had the weekend off from deliveries. He spent the time planning how he would tell the staff and what changes he would make first. He made a list of improvements for each store. New ovens for the downtown location, a better delivery tracking system for all 3 places, higher wages for workers who stayed more than 6 months, cleaner uniforms, more comfortable shoes for delivery drivers. Monday morning came. Marco put on his best suit again and drove to the company headquarters of Pizzeria Grande. It was in a tall office building downtown. Marco had delivered pizzas to this building many times, but had never been inside as a businessman. The meeting room was large with a long table. At one end sat Mr. Belmont, the owner who was selling the business. He was an older man with white hair who had started Pizzeria Grande 30 years ago. Next to him was Ms. Diaz, the lawyer. On the other side were two bank people with Mr. Thompson. When Marco walked in, Mr. Belmont looked surprised. "Do I know you?" he asked Marco. "Yes, sir," said Marco. "I have been a delivery driver at your Oak Street location for 8 years." Mr. Belmont looked even more surprised. "And you are the one buying 3 of my restaurants?" "Yes, sir," Marco said. "I have been learning the business from the ground up." The room was quiet for a moment. Then Mr. Belmont smiled and stood up. He walked over to Marco and shook his hand. "I started as a delivery boy too, 40 years ago," he said. "I think my restaurants will be in good hands." They all sat down at the table. The papers were ready to sign. Marco read each page carefully before putting his name on the line. When they were done, Mr. Belmont handed Marco 3 sets of keys. "These are yours now," he said. "The Oak Street, River Road, and downtown locations." Marco held the keys tightly. He was no longer just a pizza delivery guy. He was now the owner of 3 Pizzeria Grande restaurants. Marco decided to keep his new position a secret for 1 more week. He wanted to learn how each store worked before he told everyone he was the new owner. So he went back to work as a delivery driver the next day. When he arrived at the Oak Street location, everyone was talking about the sale. Phil, the manager, looked worried. He was in his office making phone calls. The young workers were at the front counter talking in low voices. "I bet the new owner is some rich guy who knows nothing about pizza," said Ryan, the cashier. "Or maybe a big company that will change everything," said Lisa, who worked the phones. Marco walked past them to get his delivery orders. He wanted to tell them not to worry, but he kept quiet. The time was not right yet. For the next 3 days, Marco drove around the city making his usual deliveries. But he also watched and learned. He visited all 3 of his restaurants. He made mental notes about what each place needed. The downtown location was always crowded at lunchtime. They needed more staff then. The River Road store had problems with their delivery area. It was too big, and pizzas were arriving cold. On Thursday, Marco met with Phil for what Phil thought was a normal meeting about delivery schedules. Phil looked tired and stressed. "The new owner is coming tomorrow," Phil said. "All staff must be here at 9 in the morning. Everyone has to wear clean uniforms." "I will be here," Marco said. He felt bad for Phil, who was worried about his job. But Marco had good plans for Phil too. That night Marco could hardly sleep. Tomorrow would change everything. He got up early and put on his best suit again. He drove to the bank first and met with Mr. Thompson, who gave him some papers to take to the meeting. At exactly 9, Marco pulled up to the Oak Street Pizzeria Grande. But instead of parking in his usual spot of the back, he parked in the front where customers parked. He walked to the front door carrying a briefcase. Inside, all the staff were waiting. They were sitting at the tables that were usually for customers. Phil was at the front in his best uniform. Everyone looked nervous. When Marco walked in wearing his suit, no one recognized him at first. They thought he was from the bank or the company lawyer. Then Lisa pointed at him. "Wait, that looks like Marco," she said in surprise. Ryan stood up. "Marco, what are you doing here? And why are you wearing a suit?" Phil looked confused. He walked over to Marco and spoke quietly. "Marco, what is going on? We are waiting for the new owner. You should be in uniform if you want to keep your job." Marco smiled and put his briefcase on the nearest table. He opened it and took out the papers from the bank and the keys Mr. Belmont had given him. "I am already here," Marco said. "I am the new owner." The room became very quiet. Everyone stared at Marco with open mouths. Phil looked like he might fall over from shock. "You? But you are a delivery driver," said Ryan. "I was a delivery driver," Marco said. "Now I own this store, and the River Road and downtown locations too." No one knew what to say. The pizza guy they had worked with for years, the one some of them had made jokes about, was now their boss. Marco stood tall and looked around at all the faces. Some looked scared. Some looked confused. Phil still looked shocked. "Do not worry," Marco said. "I did not buy these stores to fire anyone. I bought them because I know they can be better. And I need all of you to help me make them better." Marco looked at the worried faces of his staff. He remembered how some of them had laughed at him over the years. But he was not angry. He had a plan to make things better for everyone. "Let me tell you what will happen now," Marco said. He sat down at one of the tables and invited everyone to sit too. "First, no one is losing their job unless you want to leave. I need all of you to help make these stores better." The staff looked relieved. Phil still seemed confused. "But Marco, you delivered pizzas. How can you own 3 stores now?" Phil asked. "I worked in business management for 10 years before I came here," Marco explained. "When I lost that job, I needed work. I chose pizza delivery because I could learn the business from the ground up. I saved my money for 8 years. I watched and learned how everything works. Now I can use that knowledge to make these places better." The staff listened with surprise. They had never asked Marco about his past. They had just assumed he was a failure because he delivered pizzas at his age. "My first change starts today," Marco said. "Phil, you are now the district manager for all 3 stores. You will help me run all 3 locations." Phil could not believe what he was hearing. "District manager? Me? But I only know this store." "You know more than you think," Marco said. "And I will help you learn the rest." Marco then explained his other plans: better ovens for the downtown store, new delivery bags that would keep pizzas hotter, a rest area for delivery drivers between runs, higher pay for everyone who stayed more than 6 months. Ryan raised his hand. "Why are you being so nice to us? Some of us were not very nice to you." Marco smiled. "Because business is not about feelings. It is about what works. And treating workers well works better than treating them badly. Happy workers make better pizza and give better service." After the meeting, Marco asked Lisa to stay behind. Lisa had always been kind to Marco. She never made jokes about him. "Lisa, I want you to be the manager of this store now that Phil is moving up," Marco said. Lisa was shocked. "Me? But I am just a phone operator." "You are the hardest worker here," Marco said. "You come in early. You stay late when needed. You help everyone. You will be a good manager." Lisa had tears in her eyes. She had worked at Pizzeria Grande for 4 years while going to school. No one had noticed how hard she worked except Marco. "Thank you for seeing me," she said. "I will not let you down." Marco spent the rest of the day calling the other 2 stores. He set up meetings for the next day to tell those workers the news too. He also called contractors to get prices for the new ovens and other improvements. That night, Marco went back to his small apartment for the last time. He had found a bigger place closer to the downtown store. As he packed his things, he looked at his old pizza delivery uniform hanging on the door. He was not going to need it anymore. But he decided to keep it to remind himself of where he started. The next morning, Marco put on a new suit. It was his first new suit in many years. As he drove to the River Road store for the morning meeting, he thought about how much his life had changed in just 1 week. The pizza guy everyone looked down on was now their boss, but Marco did not want them to just see him as a boss. He wanted to be a leader who made things better for everyone. 1 month passed. Marco made many changes to his 3 pizza stores. The new ovens at the downtown location cooked pizzas faster. The new delivery bags kept food hot longer. The rest areas for drivers made them happier. All the workers got new clean uniforms. Business was better at all 3 stores. More customers came in. More people called for delivery. Marco spent time at each store every day. He sometimes even made pizzas himself or took deliveries when they were very busy. One day Marco was at the River Road store when a delivery driver called in sick. It was the busiest time of day and orders were piling up. "I will take these deliveries," Marco told the manager. He put on one of the extra delivery jackets. "But you are the owner," the manager said in surprise. "And owners should know every job in their business," Marco said with a smile. Marco loaded the pizzas into his new car. He had finally replaced his old blue car with a better one. As he drove to the first house, he felt happy. He liked being the owner, but he also enjoyed being out on the road sometimes. The first delivery was to a big house in a rich neighborhood. Marco rang the doorbell. A man in an expensive suit opened the door. He looked surprised to see Marco. "Robert, is that you?" the man asked. Marco recognized him immediately. It was Mr. Jenkins, his old boss from the company where Marco had worked years ago. The company that had closed down and left everyone without jobs. "Hello, Mr. Jenkins," Marco said. "I go by my middle name now." "Marco, your pizza is $22, please." Mr. Jenkins looked confused. "You deliver pizzas now. What happened to you after the company closed?" Marco smiled. "I own this Pizzeria Grande and 2 others. I am just helping with deliveries today because we are busy." Now Mr. Jenkins looked even more surprised. "You own 3 pizza places. But how?" "I worked hard. I saved my money. And I learned the business from the inside," Marco said. "Not everyone from the old company failed." Mr. Jenkins seemed embarrassed. He handed Marco $30. "Keep the change," he said quickly. As Marco drove away, he felt proud. His old boss, who had let everyone down, now knew that Marco was successful. It was a good feeling. Back at the store, Phil was waiting for Marco. Phil now worked in the office next to Marco at the downtown location, but today he was visiting all the stores too. "I have big news," Phil said. "The owner of the other 2 Pizzeria Grande locations wants to sell them now. He heard how well we are doing with our 3 stores." Marco was surprised. All 5 stores in the city would be ours then. "Can we afford to buy 2 more?" Phil asked. Marco thought about it. The 3 stores were making good money now. The bank would probably give them a loan for the other 2. And Marco had saved even more money in the last month. "Let me look at the numbers," Marco said. "I think we can do it." That night Marco and Phil worked late in the office. They looked at all the money numbers for their 3 stores and the 2 they might buy. The other 2 stores were not doing as well as theirs. But Marco saw that they could make them better with the same changes they had made to their stores. "If we buy these 2, we will own all the Pizzeria Grande locations in the city," Phil said. "We will be the Pizza Kings." Marco laughed. "I do not need to be a king. I just want to run good pizza places where customers are happy and workers are treated well." Phil looked at Marco with respect. "That is why you are a good boss. You care about the right things." Marco remembered when Phil was just his manager who barely noticed him. Now Phil was his right-hand man helping run the business. Life could change in surprising ways. 2 days later, Marco and Phil met with Mr. Belmont again to talk about buying the last 2 Pizzeria Grande stores in the city. They met at the same office downtown where Marco had signed the papers for the first 3 stores. "I am happy to see you again," Mr. Belmont said. "I hear your 3 stores are doing very well." "Yes, they are," Marco said. "We made some changes that helped business grow." "That is why I called you," Mr. Belmont said. "I want someone who cares about the business to have my last 2 stores. Someone who will take care of the workers and the customers." They talked about the price. It was less than Marco had paid for the first 3 stores, because these 2 stores were not doing as well. Marco showed Mr. Belmont his plans for making them better. "I like your ideas," Mr. Belmont said, "especially the one about delivery zones. Making the zones smaller will help get hot pizzas to customers faster." By the end of the meeting, they had made a deal. Marco would buy the last 2 Pizzeria Grande stores. He would own all 5 locations in the city. The papers would be ready to sign in 1 week. As Marco and Phil drove back to their office, Phil was excited. "We did it," Phil said. "We will have all 5 stores. We can change the name if we want. We can make it Marco's Pizza." Marco shook his head. "No, Pizzeria Grande is a good name. People know it. We will keep it." The next week was very busy. Marco and Phil visited the 2 new stores they were buying. They met the workers and managers. Marco told them his plans and promised that no one would lose their job. The manager at one of the new stores was worried. "The last 3 owners did not care about this place," he said. "They just took the money and let everything fall apart." "I am not like that," Marco said. "I started as a delivery driver. I know what workers need to do a good job. And I know what makes customers happy." On Friday, Marco signed the papers for the last 2 stores. Now he owned all 5 Pizzeria Grande locations in the city. He was the pizza king, just as Phil had said. But Marco still did not feel like a king. He felt like a man with a lot of work to do. The first thing Marco did was hire more workers for all 5 stores. Each store got 2 more cooks and 1 more delivery driver. He also bought new delivery cars for each location. The cars were painted bright red with the Pizzeria Grande logo on the sides. "These cars will be like moving ads for our pizza," Marco told Phil. "People will see them all over the city." Marco also started a training program for all workers. Everyone learned how to make the best pizzas, give the best service, and keep the stores clean. Even the delivery drivers learned how to make pizzas so they could help when the stores were very busy. Lisa, who was now the manager of the Oak Street store, had a new idea. "We should have a pizza of the month," she told Marco. "Each month we can create a new special pizza. It will bring customers back to try the new flavors." Marco loved this idea. "You will be in charge of creating the new pizzas," he told Lisa. "You know what people in this neighborhood like." The first special pizza was called the Lisa. It had extra cheese, pepperoni, mushrooms, and a special garlic sauce on the crust. It was an instant hit. Customers loved it and ordered it again and again. By the end of the second month, all 5 Pizzeria Grande stores were doing better than ever before. Marco had to hire even more workers to keep up with all the orders. One night, as Marco was leaving the downtown store, he saw Ryan, the cashier, waiting for him in the parking lot. Ryan was one of the workers who used to make jokes about Marco when he was a delivery driver. "Can I talk to you, sir?" Ryan asked. He looked nervous. "Of course," Marco said. "And you can still call me Marco." Ryan looked down at his feet. "I want to say sorry. I used to make jokes about you when you were a delivery driver. I was not nice. I thought I was better than you, because I was in college." Marco nodded. "I remember. But that is in the past now." "I was wrong about you," Ryan said. "You are the best boss I have ever had. You treat everyone with respect, even people like me who are not nice to you." "Thank you for saying that," Marco said. "It takes a good person to admit when they were wrong." Ryan had more to say. "I am graduating from college next month. I study business management. I was wondering if there might be a job for me here. A real job, I mean. Not just as a cashier." Marco thought about it. His business was growing. He could use another person to help manage things. And Ryan had changed. He was not the same young man who made fun of the old pizza guy. "Come to my office tomorrow," Marco said. "We will talk about what jobs might be open for someone with a business degree." Ryan smiled. "Thank you, sir. I mean Marco. I will be there." The next day, Ryan came to the downtown office wearing a tie. Marco and Phil talked with him about the business. They were impressed with what Ryan had learned in school and on the job as a cashier. "I think you could help us open more stores," Marco said. "We are thinking about expanding to other cities." Ryan could not believe what he was hearing. "You want me to help open new stores?" "Really?" "Yes," Phil said. "We need people who understand this business. You have worked in it for years now. And you have the education too. Ryan left the meeting with a new job as assistant manager for new store development. He would help find places for new Pizzeria Grande locations in other cities. His starting pay was 3 times what he made as a cashier. As the months passed, Marco's Pizzeria Grande business grew bigger and bigger. They opened 2 new stores in the next city over, then 3 more in another city. Within 2 years, they had 15 stores in 3 cities. Marco was now a wealthy man. He could afford a big house and fancy cars, but he still lived in a simple apartment near the downtown store. He did buy a new car, but it was just a normal car, not an expensive one. He put most of his money back into the business to make it better. One thing Marco did spend money on was education for his workers. He started a program that would pay for college classes for any worker who had been with the company for more than a year. Many of the young workers took advantage of this to get degrees. Trey the cook was one of them. He got a degree in computer science while working for Marco. When he graduated, Marco hired him to create a special computer system just for Pizzeria Grande. This system will let customers track their pizzas from the oven to their door, Trey explained. They can see exactly when their food will arrive. Customers loved the new tracking system. Orders increased even more. Marco had to open another store in the city to keep up with all the business. Phil suggested that Marco should think bigger. We could sell Pizzeria Grande to a big national chain. You would make millions. But Marco shook his head. I did not build this business to sell it. I built it to run it right. To make good food. To give good jobs. Money is not everything. Phil understood. That was why he liked working for Marco. Marco cared about more than just money. One day Marco was visiting the Oak Street store where it had all started. Lisa was still the manager there. She had made it the best store in the whole company. As Marco was talking with her in her office, a young delivery driver came in. He looked about 20 years old and seemed very tired. Sorry to bother you, the young man said, but my car broke down and I cannot make deliveries today. Use one of the company cars, Lisa told him. We always have extras now. The young delivery driver thanked Lisa and left. Marco watched him go with a thoughtful look on his face. He reminds me of myself when I started, Marco said. Young, working hard, tired all the time. Lisa nodded. Zach is a good worker. He is going to night school too. Studying business just like Ryan did. Marco smiled. Maybe he will own this place someday. 5 years had passed since Marco had bought his first 3 pizza stores. Now, Pizzeria Grande had 25 locations in 5 cities. It was the most popular pizza chain in the state. Other big companies had tried to buy Marco's business many times. They offered him millions of dollars. But Marco always said no. I did not build this to sell it, he told them all. I built it to run it right. Marco had a new office now. It was in a building that his company owned. But he still visited all his pizza stores regularly. He wanted to know the workers. He wanted to make sure everything was running right. One day Marco was back at the Oak Street store. He liked coming back to where it all started. He was in the kitchen making a pizza when a group of businessmen in suits came in. They looked important. Lisa came over to Marco. That is Mr. Wilson and his team from National Pizza. They want to talk to the owner again about buying our company. Marco sighed. National Pizza was the biggest pizza chain in the country. They had been trying to buy Pizzeria Grande for 2 years now. Marco had told them no many times. I will talk to them, Marco said. He washed the flour off his hands and went to meet the men. Mr. Rossi, said Mr. Wilson with a big smile. So glad to find you here. We have a new offer for you. Twice what we offered before. Marco invited the men to sit down at a table. He listened to their offer. It was a lot of money, more than Marco had ever dreamed of having. But he still did not want to sell. Your company makes good pizza, Marco said, but you do not treat your workers well. I have heard stories about your stores. Low pay, no benefits, no chances to move up. Mr. Wilson looked uncomfortable. Business is business. We have to make money for our shareholders. Marco shook his head. But workers are people. They need to make money too. They need to have good lives. Is that a no again? Mr. Wilson asked. He looked annoyed. It is a no, Marco said, unless you change how you treat your workers. After the men left, Lisa came over to Marco. You could have been very rich if you sold to them. Marco laughed. I am already rich. I have a business I am proud of. I have workers who are happy. And we make the best pizza in 5 cities. On his way out, Marco saw Zach, the young delivery driver, again. Zach was loading pizzas into one of the company cars. How is school going? Marco asked him. Good, sir, Zach said. I am learning a lot. Someday I want to own my own business just like you. Marco smiled. What kind of business? Pizza, of course, Zach said with a grin. I am learning from the best. Marco reached into his pocket and pulled out a card. When you finish school, come see me. We are always looking for smart people who want to grow with the company. As Marco drove home that night, he thought about how much his life had changed. 10 years ago, he had been a pizza delivery driver that people made fun of. Now he owned 25 pizza stores. He gave good jobs to hundreds of people. He had changed not just his own life, but many other lives too. The next morning, Marco went to his office. On his desk was a newspaper. The headline said, Local pizza chain owner turns down $1 million offer again. There was a picture of Marco standing in front of the Oak Street store. Phil came in with coffee. You are famous now, he said, pointing at the newspaper. The pizza guy who said no to millions. Marco laughed. I was never just a pizza guy. And I am not just an owner now either. I am someone who wants to do business the right way. Phil sat down across from Marco. So what is next for us? Marco pulled out a map. He had marked 10 new cities where they could open Pizzeria Grande stores. We keep growing, Marco said. But we never forget where we started. And we never forget that every worker, even the pizza delivery guy, might be the next big success story.